The stars hadn't spoken in over a century. For 100 long years, silence had hung over the coordinates that once echoed with desperate transmissions, last stands, and whispered prayers into the void. The galaxy moved on, civilizations rose and fell, wars came and went. But in that lonely corner of space something waited. It was a graveyard. A place where the wreckage of warships drifted endlessly in silence. Pieces of steel hulls, scorched armor, shattered glass. A dead place. No one traveled there anymore, not traders, not explorers, not even scavengers. They called it the Gray Expanse. But something was still there. In the heart of that darkness, behind layers of radiation fog and electromagnetic storms, a ship rested, untouched, unseen, and unspoken. A Terran vessel. Massive, battle-scarred, wrapped in the dust of centuries. Her name was etched in forgotten steel, SS Defiance. Once, she had been the symbol of Earth's final push against extinction. Humanity's last carrier-class warship. Armed with weapons now considered outdated. Crewed by people who would be called ghosts. She had disappeared during the Battle of Triune, presumed destroyed. No signal. No debris. Only nothing. Until now. It started with a mistake. A Zrel Dominion patrol cruiser had been chasing a rogue smuggler through forbidden space. Desperate to escape, the smuggler jumped into the Gray Expanse. The patrol followed, not knowing what they were about to uncover. The chase didn't last long. The smuggler's ship failed in the static field, systems shorted, and they drifted into darkness. The Zrel didn't care about the human wreck, they cared about the signal. A flicker. Faint. Brief. Barely a whisper on their scanners. But enough. The Dominion sent a research team. Then a military fleet. Then excavation drones. Their long scanners pierced the fog. Their probes moved through the floating junk like sharks among bones. And there, in the center of the old battlefield, they saw her, silent, sleeping but intact. The Defiance. They didn't know what it was at first. It didn't match any current database. They scanned it, poked it, boarded it. They shouldn't have. The ship's AI core had shut down 100 years ago, entering deep stasis. But when the Zrel sent a spike into the mainframe, they triggered an ancient protocol. Not an attack. Not an alarm. A memory. In the stasis chambers the crew still lay, wrapped in cryogenic slumber, unchanged by time. Dozens of humans. Bodies frozen. Hearts still but not dead. And at the center in the command pod, a woman stirred. Her eyelids twitched. Her fingers moved. There was pain. A deep, sharp breath. Cold. Blinding light. Panic. She remembered the last moments before the jump. The alarms. The fire. The voices on the bridge screaming. The ship falling apart around her. Then nothing. Then this. A whisper in the dark. Cryostasis complete. She gasped, jerking upright, coughing violently. A med drone floated toward her. Nanite injection. Stabilizer. Oxygen mix. She blinked hard. Her eyes adjusted to the flickering light. She was alone. No, not quite. One by one, the chambers around her began to hiss open. Slow, eerie sounds. Breathing chambers. Frozen lungs reawakening. Her crew. The ship shook. Not from within. From outside. They were under attack. She staggered to the console, fingers trembling, skin pale. She tapped a command. Denied. Another. Denied. Systems were still recovering. A screen blinked to life. Foreign life forms detected. Unauthorized presence. Hull breach in progress. She stared at the footage. Aliens in Dominion armor moving through the Defiance's corridors, scanning, stealing, desecrating. Her jaw clenched. She whispered to no one, "They found us." Someone groaned behind her. A man. Old, worn, waking from a century of ice. He looked at her. "Are we alive?" She didn't answer. Another burst hit the hull. The sound vibrated through their bones. More stasis pods opened. More voices, tired, scared, confused. Then a voice came over the intercom. Cold, mechanical, ancient. Primary command confirmed. Protocol Genesis activated. Awakening sequence at 31%. Combat AI reboot in progress. Welcome back, Commander. She felt something inside her. Anger, pain, purpose. They had not died. The galaxy had forgotten Earth. It had moved on without them. The Dominion had erased the past. Written their own story. Called humans extinct. Weak. Primitive. But the Defiance lived. And now the enemies of Earth had walked right into its mouth. There was no escape. On the Dominion ship, Commander Kex Velor stood smugly on the bridge, arms crossed, tentacles twitching in satisfaction. The prize was greater than expected. A Terran relic preserved like a fossil. Pathetic. They hadn't even evolved. Still used cryopods. Still relied on neural networks. The whole species had been a fluke in galactic history, brief, violent, emotional. And now their last secret was his. Drain its data. Salvage what's useful. Then destroy it, he ordered. But something was wrong. One of his lieutenants hissed. Sir? The ship's core is coming online. He scoffed. Impossible. It's ancient. No, sir. It's awake. The lights on the Defiance shifted. Deep in its belly, the heart of the ship pulsed. Not like a machine. Like a living thing. AI reboots are not fast. They take minutes. This one took seconds. Then it spoke. Not through language. Through code. Through a scream across every Dominion frequency. A warning. You should not have come here. Then the Defiance fired. Back on the ship, Commander pulled herself upright as the ship's energy surged beneath her. She felt it. The hum. The gravity recalibrating. The engines warming. Someone spoke behind her. Is this real? She nodded. It's happening. Another voice. But Earth, is it still there? What year is it? She didn't answer. Not yet. She looked to the bridge screen. 4 Dominion ships were surrounding them now, preparing to destroy what they didn't understand. But they didn't know the Defiance was built for this. It wasn't a ship. Not anymore. It was vengeance. Weapons activated one by one. Guns. Torpedoes. A plasma rail system they'd never tested. Her hand hovered over the control. She hesitated. The last time she fired this ship, she lost half her crew. She remembered their screams. Their faces. The void. But this time the enemy came to her. With a sharp breath, she pressed the button. And hell followed. Across the galaxy, in a forgotten Terran outpost orbiting the red moon of Lethera, a young technician was eating alone in the cold silence of night shift. The station barely ran. The solar panels worked half the time. The comms were almost always dead. Then something flashed on his console. A beacon. A name. Test Defiance, status, active. He dropped his food. Eyes wide. No way. He tapped the line. Tried to trace it. But it vanished as fast as it came. He stood up slowly, heart pounding. They're alive. He ran to the main hall, where 3 old war veterans sat playing cards. It's back, he shouted. The Defiance, it's awake. They looked up slowly. Confused. Then still. One of them stood. He said nothing. He just stared out the window at the stars. On the bridge of the Defiance, the crew was gathering. Shaky. Pale. Alive. They had questions. Fears. Memories. But above all, they had a reason. The ship's AI spoke again. All enemy vessels locked. Fire sequence in 4. 3. Someone asked, what do we do now? The commander didn't look away from the stars. She simply said, we finish what they started. Then the stars outside turned red. The lights across the bridge flickered again. Some of the panels were barely working, the wires hissing from age and war scars. Dust drifted in the stale air. It was hard to breathe, but no one complained. They didn't have time. Outside, 4 Dominion warships began their coordinated movements. No hesitation, no fear. The Zrel never feared humans anymore. That had ended long ago. But they didn't know what was awake now. The commander stood quietly, eyes locked on the tactical screen. The faces around her were waking reminders of a past that didn't feel real anymore. She saw Harlan, her old chief engineer, hunched over a console, wiping his hands on a rag that was older than some planets. He looked pale but focused. Near the wall, Tessa was trying to stabilize the life support system. She looked thinner than before, older maybe, but her hands moved like muscle memory, steady and sharp. No one asked what year it was anymore. They were too busy trying to survive it. The AI's voice broke through again. Calm cold. Weapon systems at 78%. Shield generators stabilized. Hull breach in Section 9 remains unsealed. Seal it manually if you have to, the commander said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room like a blade. I want us space-worthy before they get smart. One of the young techs looked up from a display, confusion in his voice. They haven't fired again. Why not? They're studying us, she replied. Trying to figure out if we're worth the ammo. Someone let out a bitter laugh. They'll learn soon enough. The bridge fell silent again. Just the hum of machines. The soft static of damaged speakers. She walked over to the central chair and stared at the tactical view. 4 red blips in a perfect net around them. Predators closing in on something they thought was dying. The crew wasn't ready for a full fight. Half of them had frost still clinging to their eyelashes. Their bodies weren't used to gravity again, much less combat. The ship itself had been dead for 100 years, and yet here they stood, woken not by choice but by enemy hands. Someone whispered from the back, "We shouldn't be alive." No one responded. They all felt the same. But she wasn't thinking about that anymore. She was remembering the last moments before the ship vanished. Earth had been burning. The Dominion had launched their final offensive. Humanity's outer colonies fell one by one. The fleet was scattered. And defiance had been Earth's last gamble, a weapon, a carrier, and a symbol. She remembered the silence as they entered the jump gate under fire. She remembered locking eyes with her crew as the world shook. They were told they wouldn't survive. And then, they didn't. Not until now. Her thoughts were interrupted as the ship jolted slightly. The AI's voice followed. Gravitic tethers detected. Enemy vessel attempting to halt rotation. Preparing countermeasures. She looked to Harlan. He nodded and moved to the portside console. "This old girl's still got some fire," he muttered. "Gimme a second. I'll make him regret touching her." Nearby, Tessa looked up from the reactor panel. "We're barely running on 2 coils, Commander. If they open fire, we won't last long." The commander didn't flinch. "Then we hit first. And we hit harder." "Just like before," Harlan added. "Back when no one expected humans to fight like devils." Another jolt. The Zrel ships were closing in tighter now. One of them broke formation and began to spin slowly along the Defiance's dorsal line, no doubt scanning for weak points. "They think we're relics," said a young voice. Jensen. Barely old enough to shave back when they launched. He'd been a sensor officer in training, now he was one of the few fresh minds in the room. "They always thought that," the commander replied. "That's why we won last time. They underestimated the fact that we don't stop." She looked up at the old screen hanging above the central console. It still showed the Earth flag, faded, burned at the edges but still visible. 100 years had passed. And somewhere out there, Earth might be nothing more than ash. She closed her eyes for a second. Then she remembered. There had been a transmission, right before the ship made its jump into blackout space. A voice. A promise. The president of the Earth Union speaking to every Terran ship in the sky. "If you survive, if even one of you wakes up again, don't forget who you are. Don't forget what they did to us. Make them remember." She opened her eyes. "I'm not forgetting," she whispered. The AI interrupted. Incoming signal detected. Dominion broadcast. Translation in progress. The bridge speakers crackled to life. A voice, arrogant, hissing, and smooth. The language was old but recognizable. Dominion trade common. "Ancient Terran ship. You are surrounded. You are obsolete. Your time is over. Surrender now and we will grant you a quick end. Resist, and be erased." Jensen looked around nervously. "They're not bluffing. These are execution-class vessels. They can atomize moons." The commander didn't move. She stepped toward the console. Leaned in. Spoke clearly. "Broadcast this." Then she said it slowly, carefully, so even the Dominion couldn't miss it. "We were asleep. You should have let us dream." Then she cut the line. For a moment no one spoke. Then Harlan muttered, "Hell of a way to say no thanks." The AI spoke again. "Shields at 81%. Forward batteries armed. Firing trajectory locked on Vessel Alpha." She didn't look at the screen. She looked at her crew. "Are you with me?" she asked. One by one they stood a little straighter. A nod here. A breath there. "Yes, ma'am," came the answers. Quiet but not unsure. "Then let's do what we were built to do." The AI initiated firing protocols. Outside, the stars turned red again, flashes of plasma bursts erupting into the void. The Defiance roared back to life, shaking with the fury of buried weapons finally freed. The hull vibrated. Light surged. And a sound filled the ship that no one had heard in a century. The heartbeat of war. But they weren't winning yet. They weren't even surviving. The Zrel ships scattered from the first volley, dancing like sharks around a wounded whale. The Defiance was powerful, yes, but she was old. And she was tired. A blast rocked the port side. Alarms screamed. "Hull breach in Section 6. Tessa shouted. "Seal it." Harlan barked. "Emergency power rerouted." "Structural collapse in 20 seconds, said the AI. The commander gripped the railing tight, knuckles white. They were already bleeding. But there was something else happening, something she hadn't ordered. A silent process deep inside the ship had begun. A forgotten subroutine buried in the code of the ship's AI core. It had been triggered not by the Dominion spike, but by the crew's biometric reawakening. A process called Final Vow. It accessed encrypted files locked by her own DNA and command signature. The files were dated 100 years prior. And they weren't battle plans. They were memories, logs, personal logs, from Earth. She didn't know this was happening yet. But deep inside the ship, the Defiance was remembering what it had lost. Old messages from families. Civilians crying in shelters. Children whispering into recording booths. All uploaded as part of the final legacy project, so that, if the Defiance survived, it wouldn't return to a world that had forgotten them. The AI processed it all at once. Pain, grief, rage. And for the first time, the machine didn't just follow its orders. It believed in them. Back on the bridge, the commander was trying to keep the ship together. She looked at Jensen. Scan for warp gates. Any exit path we can take. There's one 12 clicks out, but it's unstable. They'll chase us through it. We don't run, she said flatly. He looked at her, uncertain. Then what do we do? She stared at the screen. At the enemy. At the pieces of her past that still floated in the vacuum. Burned ships. Crushed dreams. Dust where friends had died. She didn't smile. But her eyes lit with something deeper. We remind them who we are. And somewhere inside the Defiance, the AI responded in kind, not with words, but with wrath. The ship groaned again as if waking from a deep, painful sleep. Sparks fell from the ceiling. A fire burned somewhere down in the engineering deck. The air was thick with heat and smoke, but no one on the bridge left their post. They knew what was coming. They'd been through worse. And they had no intention of dying silent. Outside, the Dominion ships weren't pulling back. They were shifting formation, closing the gap. Their claws were out now. Their confidence was turning into caution, and caution was about to turn into fury. Jensen leaned over the console, sweat pouring down his face. We just lost one of the autocannons. Direct hit. Harlan snapped, I can reroute power to the remaining 3, but if they fire all at once again, the hull won't hold. Then we stop them before they get that chance, the commander said. Her voice was low, steady. She wasn't giving up. She hadn't fought through a century of death just to quit here. She turned toward the AI interface. Status of the ignition drive? The AI's voice buzzed faintly, strained. Core stability is dropping. We are operating beyond original safety protocols. Will it hold? Uncertain. She looked to Tessa, who was gripping the emergency override station. How's life support? Barely functioning. I've sealed off 3 decks. We're down to 60% breathable air. Seal more. Lock off non-critical sectors. There was a moment of hesitation before Tessa said quietly, we still have cryopods in 2 of them. They haven't been awakened yet. The commander's face changed. Not anger. Just something heavier. She looked away for a moment, just one. Then she said, lock them down. Prioritize the ones already standing. Tessa didn't argue. Outside, another explosion rocked the side of the Defiance. One of the smaller Dominion vessels had moved too close and fired a full spread of plasma torpedoes. The shields barely held. But then, something happened. One of the torpedoes was intercepted. Not by a defense turret. Not by anything visible. By something fast. Something human. Jensen gasped. What the hell was that? The screen zoomed in. A small escape pod from the Defiance, retrofitted with manual controls and a single human pilot inside, had launched straight into the line of fire. The pilot's name blinked briefly on the screen. Private Santos. He had launched himself into death just to stop the hit. No one had given him the order. He just did it. The bridge went silent for a moment. Not out of shock, but out of grief and awe. He bought us a few seconds, Jensen whispered. The commander's jaw clenched. Then we make them count. Tessa wiped her eyes and said, target the smallest Dominion ship. Bring down at least one of them. Let the others feel it. The AI responded immediately. Locking coordinates. Firing solution optimized. Harlan adjusted the power routing. It'll cost us more power than we have, but hell with it. Outside, the main cannons charged. The Defiance shook as its broken heart forced itself to burn again. The ship screamed as it fired, a deep, tearing sound like steel grinding through the stars. The Dominion vessel didn't have time to dodge. It was torn in half by the blast. Pieces of it scattered into the void, spinning like metal leaves in a storm. Jensen raised a fist. Yes. But no one cheered. Because they knew what would follow. The Dominion didn't handle losses well. The other 3 ships shifted immediately, surrounding the Defiance tighter, faster, closer. Like wolves? No more scanning. No more analyzing. Now they would kill. Harlan looked at the commander. We've got 1 shot left like that. After that, we're throwing rocks. She nodded. Then make it count. More alerts filled the bridge. Fire spreading. Deck pressure dropping. People shouting over comms. But still no one backed down. They were tired. Scared. But they were human. And that still meant something. Then, from the far side of the star system, a new blip appeared. Small. Faint. But fast. Tessa narrowed her eyes. Picking up something. It's heading toward us. Friend or foe? The commander asked. No idea. No signature I recognize. The blip got closer. And closer. Suddenly, the comm system cracked open with static. A voice came through. Human. Defiance. This is the salvage ship Emberfall. Repeat, this is Emberfall. We picked up your signal. We didn't believe it. We're inbound. We're bringing what help we can. Jensen's eyes went wide. They came? The commander stared at the screen. Then she whispered, they heard us. The Emberfall wasn't a warship. It was barely held together. But it brought supplies, emergency drones, even some old military bots. And more than that, it brought hope. But the Dominion saw it too. One of the ships broke off, heading for the Emberfall. No, the commander said almost in a growl. They don't get to take that from us. She turned to the AI. Fire everything. Now. But the core. Now. The Defiance howled. Every remaining weapon on the starboard side lit up, tracing fire through space. The bridge dimmed as power surged. Everyone braced for recoil. Outside, the weapons didn't miss. The second Dominion vessel was crippled, spinning, smoking, venting gases into the void. But the price was steep. Inside the Defiance, the lights went out. The gravity shifted. Screams echoed through the corridors as systems began to fail. Tessa slammed a panel. We just blew our main power lines. We're flying blind. The AI's voice was barely audible now. Auxiliary systems failing. Life support at 30%. Hull integrity, compromised. The commander stood at the center of the dark bridge, lit only by emergency red light. She didn't blink. We hold. Until the end. From the outer windows they could see the Emberfall turning, using its own body to shield the Defiance from incoming fire. No one had asked them to. They just did it. Because something inside them remembered what it meant when humans stood together. The Dominion ships closed in again. Only 2 left, but they were angry now. Their shots were faster. Sharper. The Defiance barely held. Jensen clutched the console. We're not gonna make it. No, the commander said quietly. But they will. Harlan looked up. What are you planning? She didn't answer. She turned and walked out of the bridge. Down the hall. Past the flickering lights. Past injured crew lying in corridors. Past the old banner still hanging on the walls. She walked to the core chamber. And there, waiting in the center, was the heart of the Defiance. Glowing. Dying. Still beating. The AI whispered again, softer this time. Command override required to initiate final defense protocol. She looked at it. And she knew what it meant. And she was ready. But she waited. Not yet. Because she still believed there might be another way. Outside, the Dominion ships prepared their final pass. This would be it. One last barrage. One final storm. Jensen's voice came through the comms. Commander, they're charging main cannons. Tessa's voice cracked. We don't have the shields to stop it. Harlan's voice was quiet. Tell us what to do. But she didn't speak. She just closed her eyes. And listened to the ship breathe. 100 years of silence. 100 years of pain. And now the sky was screaming again. They were ready. Ready for whatever came next. And still, she waited. Because sometimes, the universe gives you a second more than you think you have. And in that second, everything can change. The silence inside the Defiance's core chamber was heavier than the damage reports pouring in. Everything was breaking down and still the commander didn't move. She stood there, eyes fixed on the core, breath steady despite the weight pressing down on her chest. All around her, the ship groaned like it was alive and in pain. Panels sparked. Steel bent. The walls shook again under another near hit from the Dominion warships. The Emberfall was holding position, still shielding the Defiance's flank, but it wouldn't last long. Her comm crackled to life. Commander, you need to make the call. Jensen's voice was tight. They're charging again. Bigger this time. She opened her mouth to respond, but another voice cut in. Not Jensen. Not Tessa. Not the AI. This one was unfamiliar, quiet, almost unsure. Defiance command. This is Sentinel Class Deep Recon Unit 17. We've received your broadcast. Please confirm. She froze. That name wasn't familiar to her. And yet it stirred something cold in the back of her mind. She stepped toward the nearest wall comm and pressed it. This is Commander of the Terran vessel Defiance. Identify your origin. There was a pause. Then the voice returned, clearer, firmer. We are a blackout fleet. Hidden from all known networks since Earth Command initiated the Phoenix Directive at the fall of Sol. We are what's left. We've been waiting for a signal, your signal. She couldn't speak. The Phoenix Directive had been the last fallback. A myth more than anything, rumors whispered in command bunkers during the war's final days. It said that if Earth truly fell, some ships would scatter and go silent. Not to fight, but to survive. To outlive the end. And now one of them was answering. How many of you are there? She asked. Not enough, the voice answered. But we are en route. We intercepted Dominion chatter. You're not alone anymore. Hold your position. She gritted her teeth. We may not have time left to hold anything. You just have to survive. Her heart slammed once in her chest. The air felt heavier. But for the first time she wasn't sure if it was despair or hope. Jensen's voice came through again, shaky. They're charging their main weapon. 20 seconds until impact. She ran. Back through the damaged corridors, past injured crews still refusing to leave their posts. She reached the bridge just as another blast rocked the port side, sending sparks spraying from the ceiling. People staggered but stayed on their feet. No one looked away from their stations. She took her place again. Tessa's eyes met hers. We're out of power. Hull's at 34%. We can't take another hit like the last one. Jensen pointed at the tactical map. The Dominion ship, flagship class, it's changed its targeting pattern. They're not just trying to kill us. The commander narrowed her eyes. What do you mean? They're scanning the core. They want to take the ship intact. They've stopped aiming at weapons arrays and engines. They're targeting the AI chamber. They know what this ship is. It hit her all at once. They weren't just hunting them. They wanted the Defiance. Its code. Its memory. Its fire. The Dominion hadn't seen a ship like this in over 100 years. They couldn't build it themselves. They didn't understand the madness behind it. But they knew power when they saw it. And now they wanted it for themselves. If they got it, they wouldn't just erase humanity's last light. They'd twist it, use it, wear it like a stolen face across the stars. She stood slowly, cold sweat trickling down her spine. Harlan looked over. You're not going to let that happen, are you? She shook her head. No. But we're not just going to blow the ship either. Tessa's voice was hoarse. Then what do we do? The commander turned back to the main screen. We fight. And just as she said it, another shockwave hit, but it wasn't from the Dominion. It was from behind them. The Emberfall. It had launched something. Not a weapon. A transmission. A short burst of encrypted human code. Military grade. And within seconds, every system on the Defiance began to flicker with life. Lights came back online. Consoles steadied. Stabilizers held. The AI's voice returned, stronger now. Power surge received. Emberfall has provided fusion cell override. Systems rebooting. Combat functionality at partial capacity. Jensen stared at his screen. That was impossible. That ship's a cargo rig. Where the hell did they get that kind of tech? Tessa's eyes widened. Wait, Emberfall. That ship used to be a Terran intelligence hauler. The kind that disappeared at the end of the war. They must have been carrying classified gear when they went dark. Now it made sense. They'd been running all this time. And now, just like the Defiance, they were done running. The commander stepped forward. Target their lead ship. Fire everything we've got. This time the Defiance didn't scream. It roared. A single lance of white-hot energy ripped through the void, hitting the Dominion flagship dead center. It didn't destroy it, but it cracked it open. Pieces tore away. Hull plating shattered. On the screen, chaos spread among the enemy ranks. Their formation wavered. But they didn't retreat. No, now they were angry. Their remaining ships realigned. The final charge began. And that's when the second signal came. Another transmission. Another voice. Not from Emberfall. Not from the Blackout Fleet. This one came from inside the Dominion network. Terran vessel Defiance. This is Captain Velik of the Grather Rebellion. We have hijacked a Dominion carrier. You are not alone in this fight. The bridge fell dead silent. Jensen turned, stunned. Did he just say, rebellion? The commander's mouth was dry. She stepped closer to the screen. Repeat your last, Captain. The voice came back clearer. We are not Zrel. We were conscripted, enslaved, made to serve their empire. But not anymore. We saw your broadcast, your ship, your courage, and we remembered. The humans taught us something 100 years ago. They taught us to choose who we are. The signal ended. Then a new blip appeared. A Dominion ship, turning against the others, and firing. A single Dominion warship turning on its own kind was like watching lightning strike in reverse. Unexpected, loud, blinding. The bridge of the Defiance went still. Every crew member froze, watching the screen as the hijacked ship tore through its former allies, weapons blazing in desperate, wild fury. The Grather rebellion wasn't just real, it was choosing to fight now here for a reason buried deeper than politics. For freedom. For a promise humans once made and nearly forgot. Jensen gripped his seat, eyes wide. They're actually doing it. They're fighting for us. No, the commander said softly. They're fighting with us. The momentum had shifted. For a moment, just one sharp breath in time, the Defiance was no longer alone. The Emberfall was still holding its burn, buying them seconds. The Blackout fleet, shadow ships long thought dead, was coming fast, signals pinging in from the outer ring of the system. And now, one of the enemy's own was burning red against its former masters. But the Dominion wasn't finished. The damaged flagship steadied. Its engines reignited, thrusters firing in all directions. Their AI adapted quickly, faster than most civilizations even dreamed possible. One by one, the remaining ships restructured their formation, tighter now, angrier. They didn't care about honor or tactics anymore. They wanted the Defiance gone. Tessa stood by the comms, blood trailing from a cut across her forehead. We're getting readings, they're charging up some kind of multi-core cannon. Bigger than anything we've seen before. Jensen looked at the data. They're going to fire it straight through us and the Grather. They don't care who dies. They never did, Harlan muttered. The commander didn't blink. Then we ended here. She walked slowly to the command chair and sat down. Every system flickered around her. The ship was on the edge of breaking apart. But she was still breathing. And so was her crew. AI, she said steady. Prepare full burn. The ship responded, voice firm and clear. Full burn will collapse the core. Final defense protocol will engage. I know. Harlan turned. Wait. No. You're going to ignite the engine inside a gravity lock? You'll kill everyone. Not everyone, she replied. I need you and Tessa to take the Emberfall. Get the cryopods. Get the wounded. Get out. Jensen stepped forward. I'm staying. The commander didn't argue. You're too injured to make it to the evac decks anyway. He gave a tired laugh. That's fair. Harlan's voice cracked. You don't have to do this alone. I do, she said softly. This ship waited 100 years for someone to finish the story. It's my story. Let me end it the right way. They didn't want to leave. But they obeyed. They always had. Moments later, the last surviving crew who could walk or carry were loaded onto the Emberfall. The Blackout ships arrived just in time, punching holes through the Dominion side, scattering their lines even more. The Grather ship burned alongside them, fighting without hesitation. But the enemy flagship, battered and furious, still had enough firepower left to break the system in half. The commander stood alone on the bridge now. Her hand hovered over the final control. The AI spoke, quieter than before. All systems ready. Countdown will begin on command. Estimated impact radius, 3,000 kilometers. Good, she said. That should be enough. She watched as the Dominion flagship charged its weapon. Lights along its hull surged with energy, brighter than anything they had fired before. There would be no more warnings. No more stalling. Jensen's voice came through the ship's internal comm. Still here with you, Commander. I know, she whispered. We're going to show them. Outside, the Emberfall cleared the blast radius, carrying the surviving crew in cryochambers. The commander closed her eyes. For Earth, she whispered. Then she gave the order. Burn it. The AI responded immediately. Final defense protocol engaged. Goodbye, Commander. The core of the Defiance went critical. And then, everything exploded. A sphere of light erupted outward, swallowing the Dominion flagship mid-charge. The rest of the enemy fleet was caught in the shockwave, torn apart by raw, collapsing energy. The Defiance didn't just die. She took her enemies with her. From the Emberfall's bridge, Tessa watched the blinding flash through the viewport, her hands shaking. Then came silence. No more signals. No more threats. Just the broken pieces of war drifting quietly through space. The Emberfall's captain, an older man with tired eyes, said nothing. He simply turned the ship and guided it toward the waiting blackout fleet. Survivors began linking up, stabilizing the wounded, tending to what was left. And somewhere in the dark, hope stirred again. But just as calm began to settle, a new signal pulsed across every human channel. Unidentified. Encrypted. Not Dominion. Not from any known fleet. Just 2 words. She's alive. Confusion spread. People checked systems, tapped into consoles. Tessa leaned forward, voice sharp. What do you mean, alive? Who is this? The signal pulsed again. Then coordinates appeared. Far edge of the system. Close to the blast origin. A small escape pod. Buried beneath debris. No power. No beacon. But one faint life sign. The Emberfall spun around, heading back toward the heart of destruction. Against all odds, against every calculation, there it was. A sealed pod. And inside, unconscious, half-frozen. The commander. Her hand still gripping the emergency eject control, last used seconds before detonation. She had chosen to live. But not for herself. For the future. Because humanity had lost too much already. And this time it wouldn't lose its story. Not to silence. Not to the void. Not to the Dominion. And far beyond them, in the deepest parts of the blackout fleet, a new banner was already rising. Built from old metal. Painted with flame. And named for the ship that refused to die. Defiance. The Emberfall drifted in silence near the debris field, its hull bruised from radiation waves and micrometeor impacts, but intact. The stars beyond the viewport looked different now, calmer somehow. As if they, too, were trying to understand what had just happened. Smoke still lingered in the ship's corridors. Lights flickered. The hum of emergency generators filled the background. And in the med bay, under low light and soft hissing of oxygen vents, the commander breathed again. She hadn't spoken yet. Not fully. Her lungs were still sore from the ejector pressure and cryo-freeze exposure. The doctors said she was lucky to be alive. But everyone who saw her lying there in that medbed knew luck had nothing to do with it. She made it out because she refused not to. Word had already spread through the fleet. Through every hidden human ship. Through blackout codes and old Terran encryption. The commander had survived. And so had the story. They moved her slowly to a private medbay, part of a temporary command center built inside the Emberfall central cargo hold. She insisted on sitting up the moment she could move her arms. She wanted to see the reports. Wanted to know how many had made it. Who didn't? What came next? Jensen sat beside her for most of the updates, a brace wrapped around his shoulder, eyes shadowed from exhaustion but sharp. Tessa came in and out, organizing data, calming the frightened, commanding more than she ever had to before. She wasn't the same engineer who woke up confused on the Defiance bridge. She had changed. They all had. The fleet had grown. Since the explosion, 6 other ships had joined the Emberfall, old Terran vessels, half-forgotten names with hulls scorched and engines humming like ghosts. The Gratha Rebellion had followed them too, bringing 3 captured Dominion cruisers, now repainted in deep grays and burnt reds, the symbols of their former masters scraped off by hand. No one talked about Earth directly. Not yet. It was too soon. They didn't know if Earth was still there. Some said it had fallen completely. Some said there were pockets of resistance. Others believed it had become myth like the Defiance almost had. But something had shifted out here. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was full of stories, voices, memories rising from dust. The kind that only humans could carry. The kind the Dominion had never understood. In a dark corner of the Emberfall's comms bay, a technician replayed the explosion footage again and again. Not to study damage. Not for tactical analysis. But to remember what it looked like, when one ship, outnumbered, broken, and ancient, stood its ground and made the sky light up. The commander watched it too when she was strong enough. She didn't speak the first few times. Just stared. Her expression unreadable. Then, one evening as Jensen watched beside her, she finally whispered, "She waited for us. That ship waited 100 years, and then gave everything." Jensen nodded. "And so did you." "No," she said softly. "I just told the story. She's the one who finished it." Down in one of the lower hangars, the remaining cryopods from Defiance had been offloaded. Only 12 had survived. The rest had failed from power loss or structural collapse. They held a small ceremony. No speeches. Just names read out. A moment of silence. And a row of new memorial tags etched onto a titanium slab bolted to the hangar wall. Harlan didn't say much after the service. He just stood there a while, staring at the names until someone brought him a drink and a coat. Then he went back to fixing broken circuits. That was how he mourned. In the days that followed, the scattered remnants of humanity began to gather again. The signal the commander had broadcast during the battle, raw, cracked, stitched together with dying systems, had echoed far beyond the battlefield. Not just ships but stories answered. A colony ship hidden in a comet belt. A pirate-run transport converted into a refugee vessel. A Terran science platform long thought lost in black hole research. They all started to respond. And all of them asked the same question. Is it true? Did the Defiance really fight again? No one had to answer. They just shared the footage. They showed them the fire. The Emberfall became more than a ship. It became a symbol. A meeting place. A mobile station around which the surviving fleet began to regroup. New code protocols were written. Defense strategies drawn up. Supply chains reorganized. For the first time in generations, humans had a rallying point. And this time they weren't alone. The Grather didn't leave. They pledged loyalty, not as soldiers but as equals. They had stories too. Their scars weren't human, but the pain behind them was the same. On the 10th day after the battle, a meeting was held in the Emberfall's repurposed cargo bay. No uniforms. No high-ranking medals. Just the people who survived, those who led, and those who still believed there was something left worth fighting for. The commander walked into the center of the circle, still weak but upright. The lights dimmed around her, and the silence that followed was full of breath and memory. She didn't prepare a speech. She just spoke. We were forgotten. Left behind. Some of us froze. Some of us ran. Some of us waited in the dark, not knowing what we were waiting for. But now we know. We were waiting for this. For each other. For a moment to remember who we are. Humanity isn't just about firepower. It's not just survival. It's the way we remember. The way we carry names. The way we refuse to stop telling stories. She paused, her voice tightening. We lost good people. Too many. And we'll lose more. That's what war does. But we can't let that be all we are. We fight because we choose to. We fight not just for revenge, but because we know there's something better on the other side of it. Something worth giving a damn about. Her hands shook slightly. Then she looked at each of them. One by one. The Dominion will return. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not next month. But they will. And when they do, I want them to know one thing. Her voice rose, louder now, steadier. Humanity remembers. The room was quiet for a breath. Then it erupted in sound. Not cheering, asterisk roaring star. Voices shouting. Hands pounding against bulkheads. People standing taller. There were tears in their eyes and in some, smiles. For the first time in too long they felt human again. Later that night, as stars slid by the Emberfall's windows, the commander stood alone near the observation deck. The ship was quiet now. Only the hum of drifting power systems. She placed her hand on the cold glass, her reflection staring back. Behind her, Jensen walked in quietly. You never told me what you saw in the pod, he said. She didn't turn. I saw nothing. He waited. Then she added, and that was the terrifying part. It was just silence. No pain. No light. Just silence. And yet here you are. She finally turned to him. That's the thing. The Defiance wasn't built to survive. It was built to be heard. And even when everything was gone, she still found a way to scream. Jensen smiled, small and tired. So what now? She looked back at the stars. Now they rebuild. They'd launch new outposts. Strengthen what was left of old alliances. Map out Dominion routes. Send scouts toward Earth. Maybe they'd find it. Maybe not. But either way they'd carry the memory. They'd carry the story. They'd carry each other. And across space, a message pulsed quietly through old Terran networks, bouncing between debris fields and empty jump gates. A single, simple message. Defiance lives. And this time the whole galaxy was listening. The end.